Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Vilga the Observer, and in part 2 of this video, where the part 1 I talked about this people called the Rat Scouts last week, I am today going to be talking about one of the monsters that is living in the same vicinity as the Rat Scouts. And before I show you the actual painting, the full rendering of this monster that's supposed to be in its environment, which is a swampy, foresty area, I'm going to be first showing you this glorious design, this concept of what I call the cackle face. And the cackle face, the simple explanation of what this thing is a giant tumor. It's a giant tumorous head, and they start out small, and by small I mean the size of a cow, and they get really big to the size of like a whale, and they are just this giant, ugly, repulsive looking tumor that has a face, and they can imitate noises. And they can imitate noises and voices that you like. So even if you don't have a particular favorite voice of someone's, it can actually imitate a particular noise that you'd like to hear. If you like the sound of certain birds or certain animals or whatever, like a song, it can actually imitate that because it uses that as a luring tactic, kind of like an anglerfish, but anglerfish, they attract using visuals, right? They have that light above, like on their forehead, that they use to attract fish, and this one uses noise. So you might be extra careful if you can't hear, because you might just stumble upon this thing, and then this thing will eat you alive. And this thing looks so ugly. It's really ugly. And I showed this to a family member at the end of this, and she said, "Oh, is that a dog?" A dog. And this thing, it moves and grabs things with its hair. Sorry, dog. So it grabs things with its hair, and the hair actually moves. It can still move around by grabbing tree branches and trunks using hair, but it can no longer move and remain stationary when it has reached adulthood, which is the size of a whale, and you will see that later. But I tried my best to make it seem so ugly. So how it would attract prey is, imagine you were just a rat scout. You're all dumb, like no one ever told you about the ways of life in this tough world, and you're just stomping around in a swamp, and you hear, "Oh, that's like Uncle Gary," and then you approach the direction in which you heard Uncle Gary, and you're like, "Whoa, what is this thing? You're so ugly," and you're dead. It kills you by grabbing you with its hairs, and it carries you towards its mouth, where it just eats you. As simple as that. And I thought I would give it a human face just to make it look extra disturbing, because to me, things that just look human are super disturbing. It's way more disturbing than things that look like animals, because humans are really scary. And I think ones that look scarier than humans are probably ones that look like dead humans or emaciated humans, are like super deformed looking humans with abnormal amounts of fat, or abnormally skinny, or just like gray and green and purple and bruised. It's just so scary. And this thing is in the same themes as the gasping ape. It's very horrific looking, just physically, they're so physically repulsive, and they really make you disgusted looking at them. I mean, this one makes me feel disgusted just looking at it. And I thought it would be a cool addition to my world. And if you haven't been keeping up, or if you're not a subscriber, I'll tell you a little story that I actually have my own world building project. Well, I used to have it like 15 years ago, but I abandoned it because it didn't work out, because I didn't do it alone, I did it with someone else, and it didn't work out between me and him, and I sort of just abandoned it. But these days I've been coming up with so many concept art, and they have nowhere to go. Like, they really just have nowhere to go besides my portfolio, and my portfolio is boring because it's just, I see it as like a online version of a folder, you know, but it doesn't actually belong in a world. So I'm going to exhume my world building project, and I'll tell you more about my world in an official video. But a short version would be the explanation. I actually have the name of the continent, the name of the planet, and like who's fighting who, but I'll not talk about that now. I'll just say that this monster is going to belong in that same world, and so will the rat skeletons and the gasping ape as well. And I have a bunch of stuff that I've made in the past on my channel as well, and even ones that I haven't included on my channel and I just included them on my portfolio. I'm gonna include them too. And the story goes, this world is colliding with another world, and there are two sides of humanoids that are constantly just trying to kill each other. And on this world, there is us, mankind, and on the other world, there is the demon kind. And these are the two humanoids that I was talking about. But we, mankind, we simply live here, we struggle or we don't struggle, whatever, but we're stuck here. We just deal with everything that comes our way. Meanwhile, the demon kind, they can freely phase into our world and go back to their own world at will, and we are sort of just getting one-sidedly annihilated, and it's been that way for a long time. So that's the basic, the quick version of what the world is like. And then, remember how in my previous video I drew the rat scout in this sort of anime style, but it still looks like it's oily? Like it was actually painted on a canvas, like an oil painting canvas. But this time there are no outlines at all, because I wanted to show you a different way of painting. And what I did was simply block in a silhouette shape, and then I spent as much time as I needed to make it look good. Like, I made sure all the gradations are smooth, and I made sure all the shadows and lights look sharp where they need to be sharp, and I just kept doing that until I end up having a painting that looks really good. And I used my own brush pack. It's called the hand painting brush pack. I made it so that it can help me effortlessly create paintings on Procreate that looks like it's done using oil paints, because as you can see, this looks very textured, just like a canvas. And you can get this brush pack on my Gumroad. This is sort of new, but I'm on Ko-fi now, so if you'd like a monster design or an item design, if you want me to make a concept art piece for you, you can commission me to do that on Ko-fi. So click on the link below if you're interested. But that's about it. I have made a very gross, disgusting, physically grotesque looking monster that does horrible things to you. And this monster lives in the same world as the rat scouts and the gasping ape. And I will be telling you more about the world itself in a future video. That's about it. I actually think I've thought about giving this monster arms, but I'll probably do that in another video, because at least for me, my motto or like my mantra is that since so many things exist in our current world, which is Earth, you know, it's a real word, Earth is real, Earth exists. There's so many things that exist on Earth, and everything is so weird. I just think it's not a good idea to come up with like 10 concepts, but then only choose like 2 or 3 to implement into my own world. I mean, why not just implement all 10? Because all of them should belong. As long as, at least for the sake of aesthetically, to not keep it boring, because if you make 10 different monsters, but they're actually quite samey looking, like, it's not really worth keeping 10. right? So I think if I make 10 monsters, 10 different, I would say, variations of the same monster without making it look too, like, samey, I think it should be passable for me to implement all of them into my own world, no matter how weird it will end up looking or redundant, because even our own world, which is Earth, is filled with redundancies. So I think for a new variation of the cackle face, the one with hands, I'll just do that in a future video. I don't know when I'll be doing that, because I've sort of, at least by doing this cackle face drawing, it's already on my mind. You know, like I've already stored this, it's cemented into my brain. I don't need to think about coming up with another cackle phase anymore, because I've drawn this before. So I can easily tap into my own mindset of when I drew this cackle face to just come up with a new concept. So I think for the next video, I'll probably just think of another and brand new monster to come up with, all the way until I can build up enough so I can tell you about my own world with more concrete information. Because if I tell you more about my world now and there's really nothing to show, it's going to just look like an empty portfolio. I don't know what's the word, sales pitch. You know, I'm gonna tell you about my world, but there's nothing to show. So I think I'll tell you more about my world when I have like half a continent all filled up with a people, geography, a batch of monsters, cultures, things they like to eat and cook and sing and like dance to, all that kind of good stuff, and who's fighting who, what they look like, the items they use. At least when I have a handful of each of those things, then I'll be ready to tell you about my own world. But until then, hope you'll subscribe so you can keep on knowing more and more about my world and knowing more about me as a creator. Really very much appreciated if you subscribe, because it really supports me a lot as a YouTube content creator. And if you have any questions, as always, you can just ask me down in the comments section below, and I'll be sure to answer to the best of my ability. And I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.